You can kind of do a Trump impression.
Well, I just invoke my inner id and my just as long as I get the ego up to a certain point, you just can't help it. Can't help it.
You know what it is though? It's like we're doing a tenth of it. Like
Yeah, that's true.
you're talking
That's
about.
true. I would be able to do a good Trump. I did good impressions once I work on them. That's what I used to do. That's how I started out in Australia. You know, I started out as a
Right.
radio satirist, doing impersonations of political figures. If I put my mind to it, I would nail Trump.
I buy it. I think you know what? I think we should both be working on that because he's not going away. And but
I think
let's.
he's going away.
Oh, you do? Well, actually, then let's go to that for a minute. Because I actually, I'll explain to you why. I want to know why you think he is. But on this show, the three of us have been bullish about Trump from the beginning for a couple of reasons. One, we think
Yeah.
he's the perfect embodiment of the Republican Party. All of these people have been being told for ages that the sort of pinnacle of human achievement is being a rich asshole. Boom, he's got it. And he speaks without he gives you the subtext. And, you know, I just saw another poll this morning where it's like he's still crushing it in Iowa. And it starts to look more to me like every time they say he fades, you know, he's in the Mitt Romney position right now in 2012. Everybody else is just running up against him. He always, at the end of the day, is still fundamentally leading. Now, whether or not he wants to drop out or even really wants it is another question, but he's been real resilient. So why do you think now is the time that he's done?
I've also been bullish on him from the start. I've always been skeptical of the political insiders who say, oh, he's going to be a flash in the pan, he'll go away. And I've always said, well, you say that, but by what mechanism does he go away? He doesn't need anyone's money.
Right.
He continues to appeal. Tell me how he goes away. And I think I saw a glimmer of it at this most recent Republican debate, which is what has changed my mind. And now I'm a bit more sober about the Trump phenomenon. There are a couple of things I would mention. One is, as Howard Feynman, my sort of boss, quasi-boss, pointed out, because he's the editorial director of the Huffington Post media group, and I speak to him at least once a week on HuffPost Live. Trump has been number one for 2 weeks longer than Michelle Bachmann was.
Mm-hmm.
Just bear that in mind in terms of how long he's been number one. Secondly, I've been always wondering, what is it, and a lot of the pundits have been wondering, what is it that Trump could say that would alienate the Republican base? Because he's already said every possible offensive thing. Right?
But they like that stuff. They like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there's nothing that people have been scratching their heads going, how does he implode? He can't implode because every time he says something more outrageous, he only becomes more popular.
Right.
Well, I think we got a vision of how at the last Republican debate, which is he may implode not with a bang, but with a whimper. Because the moment the conversation started turning towards foreign policy, the moment Carly Fiorina got in a dig about Trump not having known who the Iranian Quds Force was when he was interviewed by Hugh Hewitt on his popular conservative radio show, which was a huge deal to be eviscerated by Hugh Hewitt on foreign policy.
But Hugh Hewitt backed down. Hugh Hewitt backed down. He backed down like a little punk.
What he ended up doing, what Trump ended up looking like on the debate stage was someone with nothing to say. And I think that's a bigger liability than him putting his foot in his mouth, which is clearly impossible.
Right.
So I think that, he might win Iowa. He might even win New Hampshire. He's not going to win South Carolina. I mean, black people vote in South Carolina.
Not in Republican primaries.
Well, enough of them do that it can be problematic. I suspect.
So if it comes down to like an actual numeric, like 30 vote difference, literally 30 people, the black vote in the South Carolina primary will tip it.
Well, perhaps. I suspect that I suspect that the only way that he stays around is if he launches an independent campaign. Because I think he's not going to get the Republican nomination. I wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago, but I'd be willing to put money on it now.
So I think you're on point with that. And actually, I would predict, because I don't even know. The sort of question mark for me has always been if he even really wants it, and that's something we've talked about too.
Yeah,
but I think though that what is a very possible scenario is I think he will. I think he is going to win Iowa and New Hampshire. I think he's going to win some primaries, and I think because the Republican Party and the establishment is trying to destroy him, and they're using Carly Fiorina as like some type of like robotic, suicide bomber almost to try to like take him out. They're throwing everything at him that they possibly can. But I think if he starts to perceive it, because the thing about Donald Trump that's so amazing is like, and I'll tell me if you agree with this, but I think like as an example of if and there's no reason why Obama would have done this, but if in 2009 Barack Obama said, Donald Trump is going to be the co-chair of my recovery commission because he's the best CEO America's ever seen. He's fantastic and he's huge and he does great deals and he's amazing. Like Donald Trump would have spent the next 6 years explaining that Barack Obama was the best president in U.S. history, right? Like I buy, yes, he's racist, he's got all this stuff, but ultimately he is such a raw narcissist that it's all about. So if he feels in any way personally disrespected or slighted by the Republican establishment, and you see it, he's starting up with Fox again, he will run as an independent, and he'll do something. I mean, because there is a block of people that he is speaking right to their gut emotionally.
If he runs as an independent, then there is absolutely no chance for the Republican to win. I mean, I already think that there's no chance for the Republican to win unless it's Marco Rubio, just because of the demographics. Marco Rubio would be a long shot, but at least he'd put Florida in the bag, and there's no way they can win without Florida.
Right.
And he would counteract the sort of countervailing demographics that are so bad for the Republicans. I mean, as I think I've mentioned before, but your listeners will probably like to be reminded, if the Democrats get the same share of the non-white vote in 2016 as Obama did in 2012, then the Republican will have to get a larger share of the white vote than any non-incumbent Republican candidate ever has in the history of the United States. How does that happen when you're talking with all this rhetoric about building a wall and all this hate mongering against Latinos? I don't see how any Republican can make the math work.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Marco Rubio, when he talks, sometimes in the debate, he's a little bit of like a children of the corn thing going on when he talks about foreign policy. But I think that, I see what you're saying. I think the trouble with Marco Rubio is I just don't know if he's already had to twist himself into a lot of knots to survive getting through a Republican primary and being palpable in a general. And I think that while he does have, he has higher than average chops, certainly than the normal sort of modern Republican candidates, I don't think he's quite adroit or talented enough to pull off that level of sort of operating and throwing two messages at the same time.
Depends who he's up against.
No, I mean, I think even to get through the primary, I think would just be very hard for him.
But you mean even to win the primary?
Yeah, I think it's just difficult.
Maybe. I mean, he may also be slightly too reasonable for Republican primary voters. But if it depends whether or not primary voters are going to be caring about who can win the general, or whether they're just going to be going on their usual course of trying to select the most conservative candidate. It's tricky to know.